Hello, hockey fans of all ages, shapes, and sizes. Did a little short video. It's like impossible to pack this whole idea of a super team, kind of like the Ray Bork version 2 Russian edition for the San Jose Sharks in one short clip in 3 minutes. Like I did a gazillion recordings and just, I honestly was happy with my first one. And so I posted it just to kind of show my idea. But I'm going to do a longer clip here and unpack my thought process. So I just decided to sit back, put the hat backwards and dig in here. So I came up with salary for a team. And, you know, if you're a GM building a $104 million Stanley Cup race car, you don't want to be spare parts if you're a player in the off season, right? You're off his good list. You're, a spare part that's not playing every night, etc. So I kind of came up with this kind of cheeky car system for hockey players. I don't know. It's probably not going to catch on, but it's kind of goofy. But you need an engine, like tires and stabilizers. Um, you need you need grease, you need spark plugs, you need glue, like the glue guys, and you need throttle or trigger, anyways, I can unpack who I think is in there in the Sharks. Um, but first, 104 million for next year, right? So, okay, I'll just say what I kind of envisioned a team should plan for. This is my best guess at like how to properly allocate assets, right? And I think the teams that win the Stanley Cup, you don't necessarily have the best players. You don't have the youngest or oldest players. You don't necessarily have to have a superstar or like look at how hard it has been for McDavid, and I'll talk about him later, to win, right? Like Crosby got there multiple times, and I want to say, like, I was looking at Carolina's game tonight, and Jordan Stahl's still playing. I'm like, this guy's like, I'm 47, Jumbo's age, of course, and I'm like feeling so freaking old. This guy's like, I'm like, how long has this guy been playing? But when I realized I put him in the Grease category, him and like Zach Hyman. Um, and then, like you can have like your trigger guys like an Ovi or like an Alex Tuck. Obviously Celebrini's an engine, McDavid's an engine. Kind of a trigger guy is also like a Draisaitl. And then you got like your spark plugs, like a Josh Doan for Buffalo Sabres. Like I'm rooting for the Sabres. It's gonna be a mountain. Like Carolina looks so dang good. And I think this is probably their year to go to the final against Colorado. And, it's like not even over, right? Like any team can kind of go, but I came up with this 60-40 roughly salary, like a performance race car with a V10, V12, whatever analogy. And so 24 mil top line, 20 mil second line, 14 mil third line, 6 mil fourth line, and that's 64 million for forwards, 30 million defense, roughly, 5 mil times six guys. I know like you're going to have depth, you're going to have a seventh defenseman, you're going to have a couple extra forwards that are in and out. Like for the Sharks case, probably Revo and Goody next year. Those are glue guys, by the way. And 10 million for the goalies. So, you could have like, and I'm starting to see the light of, you know, drafting for position, like Chicago did that for Levshinov, right? And they passed on Demidov, and a couple other teams passed on him, and they thought like, maybe he's not as good as what they say he is. And I remember also thinking like, yeah, this Levshinov, he kind of looks like a Brent Burns, and he kind of like showed his highlight reel a little bit better. And it reminds me a lot of Chase Reed this year. Now, I am a huge Chase Reed fan. I called him out and I'm like, this guy's got to be top five after taking over for Cole Hudson, Lane's brother, in the World Juniors and for Team USA. He has a great shot. good release. I looked at his tape and, he's a fast riser like Caleb Malholtra, right? Everybody's got FOMO around these guys, like, oh my God, and I think Levshinov was something similar. He was like, oh my God, if you pass on him, like he could be the next Brent Burns or whatever. And I think this Chase Reed does have a lot of shades of like a Drew Doughty in, puck carrying ability and distribution and stuff. And it's like, there's another guy, Carson Carls. He looks like Duncan Keith to me, right? And then there's like Albert Smits, who's like a Sandis Ozelinch, or you know, some other, maybe like a Jay Bomeister or whatever. Like he's a big, stable, stay-at-home kind of defenseman, right? And then you got Keaton Verhoff, who's kind of like an Alex Petrangelo to me. He's like a little bit slower, his feet are in the muck, but he's also a lot younger. And I think his stock from number one down to like, somebody's got him like 11th or ninth. I was like, are you kidding? If the Sharks still had their pick, and I want to address this, if they still had their pick at ninth overall and Keaton Verhoff dropped to you, it'd be the steal of the century. Like, I think that guy, in my opinion, is the best defenseman with the biggest ceiling. But you never know, right? It's like people are good in the playoffs or not. Like Caleb Malholtra just went off. He's on a great team. Uh, and a guy like Kayshawn Atchison, who was drafted by the Islanders, great pickup last year, kind of a steal at like 11 or maybe 12 or 13 or whatever. Him and Eki's brother, Victor, they were, right there. And like he was the top scoring defenseman. Chase Reed had like 6 points in the playoffs, right? Now is Sue like crappy? They got blown out. I was like looking, I didn't watch a lot of the games live, and I looked last year, I saw Porter Martone live, and I thought like Schaefer, Misa, Martone, like no doubt in my mind. And then Martone slips, right? And he's like showing up to be like awesome for Philly, right? And then, they showed his basement, and I don't know if this is like a Philly along the rafters, right? Like maybe he just said, I'm coming to you guys, like no matter what, like whatever. Who knows kind of on those levels, right? And who knows, maybe Demidov's like, I'm not coming to Chicago. Like I doubt it, but the Lindros era of is probably over, but you never know. Like Michkov was kind of like that a little bit too. Like I don't want to, some people were rumored like, oh, he may not want to come to the Sharks, and that's the year they got Smith. And I'm like, I knew Smith at 4 was like, this guy's a superstar. He's going to be amazing. Great pickup at 4. It's like maybe people called him the second tier down. It'll give him a little chip on his shoulder, and I think him and Celebrini have been, thick as thieves this year and for many years to come. Now, with that said, I think Macklin Celebrini's number should be like higher than this, but like 14.71 will kind of break McDavid's record, and that's kind of like the most fair. But like if he signs before Will Smith, does Will Smith want 10 million plus maybe? I just thought like, what if they did kind of like a Jack Hughes or Sebastian Aho with Smith and Celebrini, or like a Taves and Kane, where they're like, I think theirs was higher. It was like 10 each. I don't necessarily think that the merit is there for them each to get the same a number. I don't think that to be the case. I think either one would feel like that's a little bit odd, and I think both of them, I think, should be the core foundation of this team for the next. They should both sign, in my opinion, for 8 years. Now, if they both go to each other and say, hey, like with my agent, I'm going to take a little bit less. Like, let's say probably at minimum, Celebrini goes like 12.5 mil. It's 100 million overall for 8 years. That would be on the low end. But like, what if he does something crazy and he's like, just give me 10 million a year? And Smith is like, give me 7.5, 8 million a year. It'd be like, what? And they position themselves as cornerstone pieces of that organization. They probably get endorsement deals, whatever, forever. They probably don't need another, they don't need any more money in their entire life, right? Even signing at that lower amount, but that'd kind of be like a Sidney Crosby OG move. And Jumbo used to do that later in his career, like I know when Carlson signed for that much, and Joe was later in his career, he probably felt like, oh, there's like a serious disparity here, right? But like when you're just beginning your career and you have like no assets, no cars or whatever, you're renting, you want to buy that watch or whatever, it's like, if they took a massive discount and then set the precedence, like I'd love to see guys stick around like Kurashev and Regenda. Um, it's just so tough, right? It's just like, and Graf, right? He's gonna want, if Celebrini or Smith sign for like X, Graf is probably gonna want something, like he to me is like a Zach Hyman. He's a Greece guy, and I even have Wenberg in Greece. So actually, that gives me a chance to go through the lineup of who I have kind of here, and I think you need all these auto parts to make that $104 million car. And if you do it wrong, like the core four in Toronto, you can be competing and you could be good for like, it'll make the owners happy. Hassel will be like, yeah, we're making the playoffs. Maybe we make the playoffs every year and get bounced in the first round. Like, I don't think Celebrini and Smith and like Eki and all these guys want to do that. They want to win. So it's like, does everybody kind of just come to the table and say, hey, we're all gonna you know, pinpoint Celebrini's discount as we're all going to take that. And then that maybe, goes down into like trickles down into Graph. And, it really takes a whole team to do that and love each other and whatever. Like, I don't know. You're going to have a couple guys who are like, screw it. I want to get paid what I'm going to get paid. I don't care about anybody else. And I don't get the vibe from that from this team. Now, I want to go through this list and then talk about a couple draft day scenarios or leading up to the draft. So I have like engine guys as being Celebrini, Smith, Misa, and Stenberg with the number 2 pick. Obviously, their Sharks are not going to pass on him, but I do have a caveat, and I think, anyway, I'll save that. Trigger guys, Cherney and Kurashev. Now, some people might balk at the Kurashev one, but if you look back at that game where they won in November in overtime against Colorado, the best team in the league in my opinion, I think they won 1-0 or 2-1 or something. He shelved it like Jar, it was just an awesome shot. And I'm like, this guy is so underrated. And next, you got Wenberg, so Greece. You got Wenberg, Graf, Ostapchuk, and Regenda. Now, if you look at Regenda's points per game, it's a little bit lower, but it's like kind of nuts. It's like trending towards, and I hope that it was kind of strategic where they just said, hey, like, maybe there's a sidebar conversation with Kurashev and Regenda, like, we're signing you guys, you're Olympians, like for sure you fit this core. You're gonna have to take a bit of a discount. Like we can't pay you based on your performance is insane, but we don't want to do you dirty. We want to get like the right price for like the right term and everything, maybe a bridge deal or whatever, just to like we want you guys big time. Because like I think you can't lose Olympians if you have it. Like Minnesota has like 9 or something, right? And anyway, let's keep going here and then I'll talk about scenarios of like the draft and everything. So your spark plugs, Eki, Sherwood, Gaudette, and Delandria, right? That Delandria signing was like a little bit murky to me, but I'm like, maybe some guys on their way out, and I don't even know that, right? Like, I hate to say this, but I'm going to propose it. Maybe Eki is packaged up because of the Stenberg thing. Maybe he's packaged up for a trade. His AAV is spectacular, honestly, but he is also fairly proven and he's a half point game player. I think he could be a lot more. His ceiling's a lot greater, and he's just like, I'm sick of losing, whatever. Like him and Ferraro were kind of like, I think both of them probably will be gone um, by the time this team is there. Like, I don't know if those two guys fit the core, and I love them both. Like, they're awesome people. They're amazing. Like, Eki had like the goal of the year almost. Um, and these are like really hard things to even propose, but I do have kind of an idea of like a dual window thing. I'll get to it. Anyways, your glue guys, Toff, Goody, Revo, and Vinny. And then your tires and stabilizers, basically like your big minutes guys or whatever, like they stabilize. Cags, Cagnoni, Dickinson, Orly, and Mook or Muck. And some people might disagree. It's like, oh, Dickey made a lot of mistakes last year or whatever. Yeah, he's young, and I don't know this. Like, I feel like he got the benefit of the doubt and he learned a lot in the league. And maybe the Sharks are just like, well, we're not going to be a couple of these points. We're not meant to make the playoffs, so let him screw up and like let him play the whole year and grow. I really think if the Sharks want to be serious about making the playoffs, they need to get Cagnoni up and put Dickinson down. Obviously, so he's still waivers exempt, but um, get him going early in the year, get the confidence up, run the power play in the AHL. Still bigger guys down there and whatever, and get him up. And same thing with Polkamp, get them up. I think probably way to not ruin guys. Like we saw what happened to Gushin, right? It was like, oh, he's like a stud. He's going to be like the next Datsuk. And he comes up and it's like, yeah, he didn't do anything, right? And part of that was like, he didn't fit in the depth of the Sharks at the time, and they were like, it was weird. Like they didn't put him on the top line, and I think that was like both coaching and management and some other prospects. So I compare the last Sharks era, and this is almost like pre-Greer and Holy and team is it's like they've been trying to get rid of a lot of these guys and just get them on other opportunities elsewhere. Like Tomer was a tough one. When they dropped Oreo, I was like, oh man, that guy's awesome. And I think that one could become a massive regret because he's like 6'3". He's like prime. He wasn't really like a flashy right-hander, but he was like a Justin Braun. So like I'm praying that they somehow trade for him back, like Oreo. Like that was in November when they were doing good, and also November was Delandria, and maybe that's why they signed him because he's like a spark plug, right? He's like go and he like charges guys up. And anyways, I think that in the state of the defense right now, and then this will get me to the draft options. I think the state of the defense is kind of murky, right? Like you got Ferraro, who's like so beloved, but I think he goes to like I would even propose trading him like a sign and trade maybe without movement protection or whatever, or like 4 times 4, and if you can trade him to more for Morgan Riley straight up, both organizations kind of save face. Like Toronto, I think they did Toronto a solid by getting Revo and giving them Thrun. Like he's kind of a good for their depth and long term. Like I was a big fan of his, but anyway, it's just like maybe we can get Riley and it'll be a new change of scenery. There's been a lot of like hubbub over there in Toronto that they might be looking to move him or ask him to waive. And I've even commented about that. But like I think a new change of scenery and a long term, like maybe they would retain in Toronto too. Like I don't know how many guys they have retention slots or whatever, but it'd be nice if they retain that as a pretty gaudy, especially if they're gonna, once they start paying Celebrini, Smith, Misa, and then Stenberg. And I want to talk about that too while we're on with Toronto. And just first things first, so the Cagnoni Dickey thing, and then Orly. If Mook moves on, I think you could try to trade Orlov, but also my other idea has Orlov in there because of Ovechkin and Malkin. Teaser alert. Anyways, Toronto core four. My mind jumps all around, and it's hard like to get my thoughts out or explain my thought process. But you know, with this lottery ball, Greer just kind of had like this smirk on his face, like, what the hell am I going to do now? Like, it's like not that they don't want the pick. The hockey gods gave us this second overall. Stenberg is essentially the guy. Like, Toronto's going to take McKenna, or, if McKenna somehow slips through and the like Sundin's like, yeah, he's my guy or whatever, then great. McKenna's like both those two guys are generational left wingers, like organizational changing. So I think regardless, this plan stays. But I think when you actually have to pay these guys, and you got like a guy like Graf who, remember the Leafs when they were doing their core four and they're like, Hyman doesn't really fit our core four. He reminds me so much of Graf, like a good stick, a dog on a bone, really fast skater, mucking it up in the, like he's kind of a greaser guy, like I said. He's in the crease like Regenda gets all those greasy goals. Wenberg's like the reason I called him Grease, and like obviously if you don't have grease, your engine seizes up, right? So haha, but like that pun, it's like, Wenberg and these guys like right in the net front for the power play, and then they tap them home or they get like little tap ins or, Wenberg's like amazing at screening the goalie on PP power play one. So it just like you need those grease guys that are like penalty killers, and those grease guys can form like the best third line in the league. And I think, all due respect to Goody, Sharks legend, probably the best goal in Sharks history, he was that third line kind of greaser guy. That's what Tampa Bay wanted. And, I really think that he came to Sharks for a reason. And I went for Ice Insights or whatever for a Nashville game at the time of Patty's retirement. I got to shake hands with Greer, and I said this to Holy. I asked the question in the crowd of like leadership and things like that. And I just said, Goody was a captain of his OHL team, and I know the Sharks really value leadership, etc. And I could not believe it when he came back. I was like, that is a sign from the hockey gods that he's either meant to finish his career in San Jose and win a cup here, because he is a Sharks legend and he's already got a couple cups, and he's like the ultimate leader, locker room glue guy, right? And I think him coming back has built a lot of this culture with the management team. Like, I don't know what happened because I wasn't there, but like maybe he said, "Hey, we got to like get Revo from Toronto," right? And I really don't want this to happen, but like if he's done his work, his yeoman's work of like sitting in between Celebrini and Smith, and like I thought he was like the best player sometimes on our team. It's like those glue guys that it's not a job to them. Like McDavid said this. It's like if it's just a job to you, he didn't say like get the heck out of here, but it's just like this has got to be more than just a job. And I look at like him and Revo, like the way Revo builds up his teammates and stuff. We got to get him 1,000 games. So I don't know. It's dicey, and I know a lot of fans are like, rocket to the moon for Goody, but like I personally love that player. He's a great person too. A good family guy, and he'll defend his teammates, etc. Like you can't have enough kind of those guys around. And to me, if the Sharks are going to make the playoffs next year and really make a drive, those kind of guys to start the season, and I think it would be a mistake and this is where it's dicey. It would be a mistake in my mind to like shove those guys aside at the start of the year for like rookies to get their chance. And, I think that's how you ruin a rookie, right? Like Musty, I'm sure he wants to make the team next year out of camp. But if he's not ready, sizzle him down in the minors for 40, 50 games, pull him up at the deadline or whatever. Like, there's always moves of teams. It's a professional sports. Like, you got to be. But, like, I thought of the scenario where, like, Goodrow's from Toronto. And, it's like, I know, like, he loves Revo. And there's, like, I just thought maybe, just maybe, if Morgan Riley was dangled as a carrot from Toronto and then, like, Goody was like, hey, he's a culture guy, you know, I really don't want this to happen because he's like, I love these players, right? And like when Dylan left, I was like, I was so sad. He was crying in the locker room. I was crying watching that video. It just like as a Sharks fan, like there's certain guys that are glue guys that you never want to lose. And it's just everybody can be traded. Gretzky got traded, whatever, and this will go to like McDavid and Matthews. But I just want to end on the note of like a glue guy like Goody. It's like if he's done his yeoman's work and he's built the culture in San Jose, that's like you guys like he could be a captain of this team maybe, but it usually goes to a guy that like, is the face of the team, and that's obviously Celebrini. So yeah, it's like he's an assistant for a reason. He played all 82 games, etc. But like if he's a sweetener, like let's say both teams like Toronto, it's like maybe Ferraro's on his way out and he wants to make a bit more. And, it's like he's a great culture guy too, right? And then maybe Toronto's like, hey, we miss our Revo culture and we want some culture guys back. It's like maybe San Jose is getting to the point where they're ready, and Ferraro and maybe Goodrow go to Toronto for Morgan Riley or something like that. It's just like I don't know. I hope the hockey gods want Goody to win in San Jose and he can stay as much as fans are like chirping him. It's like he can dangle in a shoebox or a phone booth in the playoffs, and you need certain types of players in the playoffs. And to the core four issue, right? It's like Stenberg this year, and Greer, like with the smirk, he's like, "What am I going to do with this guy now?" We were just going to draft a defenseman, and we're going to do the Chicago slash Buffalo thing. We're just going to build slowly, like Chicago's building from the back end out, and they passed on Demidov. So did a couple other teams. So whatever, they're not. It's like if Demidov went three, then it's like haha. But I think Verhoff is going to be the same this year, where it's like I think there's tremendous value there, and if the Sharks somehow trade their pick down and they still get Verhoff, I think it's a coup. If you get a player back with it. So anyway, culture stuff, etc. The Leafs core four. So yeah, so the Sharks, um, if they have Smith, Celebrini, and Stenberg and Misa, then that's like the core four. Like they're all going to be like realistically, they're all like 10 million plus contracts. That's 40 million out of 64 million. Then you got to have guys coming in on like a rotating cast of like ELCs, younger guys around the core, which the Leafs tried, and then like a guy like Nyes becomes like a player. And I think just a side note for him, I could see Montreal wanting him because if they get bounced by Buffalo, who I think Buffalo is going to beat them in like probably 6 or 7 games, I think they'll look at a guy like Nyes and be like, we're going to trade you some futures. And Toronto is definitely going full rebuild here, which leads me to so Nyes to Montreal could be a thing if they give a couple of assets and Toronto goes full rebuild because they just got Easton Cowan. He's coming in, and anyways, so that leads me back to where was I on that? So full rebuild. Back to the Sharks. Okay, so what do the Sharks do with their draft pick? Okay, I think that I call it the dual window, the like the dual roster, dual window. So you have um, if you decide, okay, we're gonna pay Smith Celebrini, and then you're gonna wait till Misa like 2 years down the road, he's gonna want money. Then 3 years down the road, because Stenberg is gonna come in and play right away. 3 years down the road, he wants money, and you got to deal with these guys or trade them then or pay them and trade Smith, who like God forbid that ever happens because him and Celebrini seem like the core that's going to get this done. So I just said the Smith thing just because my Denny family friend said, "Oh, like I had a dream that Smith went for Draisaitl." I was like, "Oh my God, no!" And I like all due respect to Draisaitl, and um, this is another one too of my super team idea is McDavid. So McDavid's wife and Dreisaitl's wife, like I think Lauren's friend from back home and childhood friend ended up marrying Draisaitl. Like so, those McDavid and Draisaitl are so freaking close. But I think both of them, like I said, I mentioned maybe in one of my shorts, maybe I just recorded and deleted it, but um, I think seeing their presser. Um, Dreisaitl's like, oh, we miss guys like McLeod and Fogel, and it's all these guys like Desharnais and Cease, and I'm like, sign Desharnais, please, like for San Jose. And I'm more to the thing of like, yeah, if you've got a guy like Quinn Hughes, Huggy, if you got a guy like Cale Makar, and there's like tremendous upside like Bouchard, these guys pretty much guarantee you a spot at the dance, but maybe you don't win the dance competition, aka the Stanley Cup. It's like I'm starting to see now that, Vegas with their redwood trees, right? Like all 6'3", 6'4" car wash style defenseman, right? It's like if Draisaitl said when we were at our best and he mentioned Desharnais, you got to sign that guy, like guaranteed. If you're the Sharks, do not lose him. I think try to bring a guy like Oreo back somehow, some way. And now, if I saw the presser of McDavid and Draisaitl, and it's like it's almost like these guys know it's over in Edmonton, but they don't want to admit it out loud or to their agents or whatever. And you hear the rumblings of Matthews, where he's like, he didn't even, I don't even think he did an exit interview, like basically got clobbered by Gudis like Sydney did. And I used to love Gudis, but I'm thinking like, man, this guy's like really kind of obnoxious. Like when he yelled in the Leafs' face, like I guess he's like one of those you love him on your team. Like when he yelled in Joseph Wall's face, like yeah or whatever. But it's those kind of guys that typically and like Taylor Hall's stepping up to be like that kind of guy where he like smoked Sanheim and he took out Sanderson. Like unfortunately, the sad reality is like a playoff team has to be take no prisoners. Like, Paul Maurice in Florida, he's just like, hit him, like just like, and talk it. He's like, hit, hit, hit. And like, this sadly is like, it's a different sport almost in the playoffs that when you're building a team to win, all these guys are like banged and bruised and they're like every hit is like attrition, right? And I remember the Sharks against San Jose with Carlson, right? And Carlson can dodge all the hits. He's so smart and brilliant. But then, people would always talk about like, oh, like he screws up on the back end, and makes a dumb play and then they'll score or whatever, or take a dumb penalty and then they score on the power play. Because he's not like known as a sound defender who can get away with like clutch and grab and holds. But if your superstar defenseman, offensive guy like a Bouchard does like a little hold or whatever, they almost never get away with it because they got all the offensive upside. So there's ways to construct a team, and I find this is going to the super team idea, kind of like the Ray Bork Russian version 2. You look at that team in Colorado, they had Sakic, I think Forsberg, Patrick Waugh, um, and then they get Ray Bork. And I want the Sharks to call right now, call Malkin's agent, JP Barry CAA, and just say, hey, we want you next year. You got your contract's done in Pittsburgh. You washed out. Like, that Pittsburgh is not looking good. San Jose's exciting. We're going to build a super team like that Colorado Avs team that won the cup. And I really like look at Celebrini like a Sakic, great shot, good checker and all that. Like I think a lot of people compare him to Sidney Crosby, which I would compare Taylor Hall more to like a low skating Sidney Crosby, point per game roughly. Like I know a lot less, but maybe not as much. Like Taylor Hall is a great player. Anyway, I look at Celebrini and I see Joe Sakic a lot. And when you want to build this super team, if you get Malkin to commit to San Jose, then the dominoes will fall and maybe you pay him 7.1 million. And this is, keep in mind, this is during Smith and Celebrini's pre um getting the big money, right? Like it's their last year of their ELC and they can sign this summer, but like, I hope that they do and they take a discount and they go 8 years. It makes the most sense because then it's like this is your core. You got it. You got your guys, Smith and Selly. These guys are thick as thieves all the way through, like Kane and Taves were, you know? And I love that for the Sharks. And you keep building around it. You tinker with the outside and the edges, and, and you do your thing. But this super team idea is get Malkin and get Ovi. And what does that mean for Misa? And I've got a trade idea that Sharks fans are not going to like. And I don't even like saying it because I love Michael Misa. He's a great kid, and it's just like, and Eki falls in the sword too. And I want to say, like, Musty. Whenever I see anybody in chat rooms, they mention Musty. Like, he's one of my guys. I was so stoked when they got him for a steal at 26 overall or whatever. I was like, oh my god, he fell that far. Like, he's got a great shot, and he's kind of like that engine kind of skill guy. Anyway, you got to give to get, and the fortune favors the bold. And Big Money Mike, Big Money Mike, show me the money. So it's like, okay, you don't have to pay Smith and Celebrini yet. Get Malkin and Ovi. Hey guys, you can play in the NHL one last year together. This is the plan. This is like the master plan of like the bold strategy of, just rolling up to the casino and just, pulling the lever for 1 year. And then, so you grab those two guys, and then you sign them like 7.1 for Malkin, 8 for Ovi. Hey, you guys get to play. It's a super team concept. Play in the league play in the NHL one last year together. Ride off in the sunset. You get San Jose, the first cup in franchise history. Boom. So Malkin is a center, a second line center behind Celebrini in this case, right? So what do you do with Misa? Do you move him to the wing? Yeah, probably. Um, Other pieces to this plan. I think that most likely people will think that Matthews is done because like no one came to his aid when it's just like he seems like he's on an island to himself. And I really think that he looks like the most likely to be like, I'm pulling the ripcord. I'm not even showing up to camp. I'm out of here. But like, I think that ball, the hockey gods sending McKenna, most likely could be Stenberg, but like most likely McKenna, the known name, big market in Toronto. People are already getting McKenna jerseys. I think that's going to bring Matthews back, and Matthews needs to increase his value. Like, obviously, he's 69 goals, whatever. Like, if McKenna is feeding him, McKenna might get 35, 40 assists on like mostly Matthews goals, like all year. So I think that can get Matthews to stick around even through what appears to be a rebuild from the outside. They can lie to themselves and say this is a retool, but they're rebuilding. So, I think most likely the Leafs don't want Matthews to walk. Now you got the other Edmonton story, right? McDavid drives Draisaitl. They probably are like, I love you, man, but this is over. Like, we both need to find a way out of here. And it's sad, but there's opportunity in that sadness, right? It's like you can not acknowledge it if you're those guys and ignore what you know is true. The probably what is like somewhat subjective, but it's probably the objective truth at this point that the Leafs or Edmonton are not going to win the cup in the next couple of years. And that is probably the odds on favorite for both those teams, right? So now you look at McDavid's scenario for this super team. And before I want to say that, I want to talk about like, look who the West is shaping up as. And McDavid talked about this in his exit interview. He said, hey, like, look, we've got San Jose up and coming. Look at the Ducks, like what they did to us. And, the Ducks are kind of like ahead of the Sharks and Utah. Like Utah is kind of a little bit ahead of the Sharks too. The Sharks are a little bit ahead of Chicago. So all these teams' windows are going to be opening up. And you got a gauntlet of like, I think Dallas is probably going to retool a lot this offseason because you got an aging core. Like you got Ben. What are you going to do with him? I think they got Duchesne locked in, but like Sagan, is he like kind of a couture like quiet retirement, or I don't know. It's like what's going to go on. You got Robo, all these other things, right? But you've got Minnesota is committed and they're old, right? So they're like they want to win the cup in the next couple of years. They got our guy Nico Sturm and like like a couple of these guys and like Tarasenko. The Sharks try to take another run at him, and like they said, oh, we almost got him, but they were like early on in their rebuild, and he's like, nah, But like these kind of guys are like bellwethers or barometers for like cups. They just go around like he won it in Florida, he's won it in St. Louis. It's like some of these guys like that you follow around that are like magnets for cups. You're like, you gotta get him, like, and he's a shooter too. He's like a trigger guy, trigger man, Tarasenko, and like he's like an Ovi, right? So it's like I'm not saying, hey, we're gonna bring like the entire Russian Team Russia into San Jose, but I do know that the Ruskies love the Bay Area, especially like they're huge into tech, right? So I don't care about all the war and crap like that in Ukraine, all the politics. I'm over it. It's like whatever. I mean, they didn't start the war, and like I don't even want to get on that tangent at all. But yeah, it's like, hey, like the Sharks are very well rounded, and there's a lot of great Russian players like Kaprizov, etc. And he went for the money. So, you know, it's interesting that what will Smith and Celebrini do, and also, can this super team come together? Because look at the Avs, right? And I don't think they can sign everybody, but like, look who you're going up against to try to make the Stanley Cup Finals. Like LA's like they're on their way out. Vegas is aging out pretty soon, I think. They still might win, beat the Ducks. It's going to be a really close, entertaining series. I love that series. And you look at the Ducks too, right? Like their window's now open, and they got like seasoned vets like Granny. Miss him. He was an awesome Shark. And like Killorn and Truba and all these guys, and they signed John. Like I don't think they can sign John Carlson, so we should try to nab John Carlson. Like LA stole Cease from us or whatever, like we traded him to Dallas, and you know trading Blackie, Mackenzie Blackwood, and he's now the backup to Wedgwood and like the lumberyard or whatever. But like those were really hard trades to make, and trading Hurdle, like a fan favorite forever, like, and Timo Meyer, like Timo time, and all these guys. It was so hard to do this rebuild. Now, I want to say this will bring up my final point of, you know, like what the Sharks can do at this draft. And I want to talk about this hypothetical trade scenario of McDavid. And I don't think many Oilers or Sharks or everybody, they're just like, let's not talk about that. It's impossible. But I looked at the Quinn Hughes trade, okay, and it is 4 first rounders essentially. Now you've got, I'm just going to rhyme off the guys in their position. I wrote it out just so I'd have it. Rossi, number ninth overall. Zeev Buium, 12th. Ogren, 19th. Plus a first round in 2026 for Quinn Hughes, which is going to be pretty late, like probably 24 plus, I think, now, because they're past that round, or maybe 28. Like they're going to be really late. So 4 first round picks. Now, if you want to get McDavid or Matthews, and I would say what people say is the most unlikely is probably closer to the truth than you think. And like, I think McDavid and Teal would be epic. Get that guy a cup. And I know Oilers fans are like, there's no freaking way. And San Jose's like, this is like impossible. No freaking way. So it kind of fits with my super team idea. And you have window number one and window number two. Now, the guys that would go the other way, unfortunately, um, and I like, disclaimer, I love these players, and I just think that um, you have to give to get, and the fortune favors the bold, and all that good stuff. It's just like if you're going up to the casino and you want to win a cup, the first one in San Jose Sharks history, and you want like a centerman like McDavid or Matthews, then you got to give to get. And so that leaves Misa. And I love Michael Misa. It's like he stayed at the Tivoli's and like he's a great kid. But I think where does that leave him? And it goes to the whole core four thing, right? It's like you have to decide. I think you need two quality skill guys and then build around them. So you'd have like one per line, or you can stack them like McDavid, Draisaitl, like that. That's kind of the thing. And then you need like a good core defenseman, a good goalie, all these glue guys and greaser guys and whatever. Like it takes a team, right? It's just like you can't do it alone. And anyways, Michael Misa in this case, like you're not going to acquire McDavid or Matthews and say you're on the third line. Like I'm sorry, like I know Jumbo played when he was like 38. I think he played like that's like realistic, but like McDavid's like in his prime plus, right? So is Matthews. They're like 30, like at the end of their prime. Get these guys a cup, right? So and I know Matthews, which seems more likely than McDavid, is probably less likely because he's gonna love like eating cookies from McKenna, like just serving them up passes for one tees, like all next year. Anyway, uh, either of those guys, I would say it's gonna like Quinn Hughes was 4 first rounders essentially. You're going to need 5 first rounders and probably a better quality, maybe 4 first rounders for Matthews at his current state because his value is pretty low. Like I said, he's got an injured back and there's worries like how long is he going to go, et cetera. And like if he wants out, where's his head at, mental health, et cetera. McDavid's like, seems like, hey, I'm in my like he won like the Art Ross again, right? So it's like, yeah, he's good to go. So he definitely needs 5 first rounders, probably at minimum, maybe even like I don't know. I don't think you go even further than that, but I think the NHL is wise enough to like prospects now where like a Kucherov doesn't fall to way down or like whatever. It's just like there's so many people internationally doing like prospect reviews and eventually guys that are like to be seen or like, hey, watch out for this Demidov guy. It's all over chat forums and things. Like the guys are no longer a mystery. So that happens pretty rarely. And there's like certain levels of like one, two, three, all the way down. And like I talked about this before, where there's like, what, 800 players in the league or something. There's like this many first rounds. If you project out a lot of guys' careers, it's like mostly first rounders. So you're like, there's a pedigree to it. And your guys like Graf or whatever, Pavs. I met Pavs too at Jumbo's thing. He's like the nicest guy in the world. I was just like, hey man, congrats on the golf tournament. And then I was like lining up to get a scotch and he's just like, yeah, go ahead. He's like so down to earth and nice. Like that guy is like a gem. Anyways, I think Colin Graff is kind of following in his footsteps. I think these guys that are like maybe not of a pedigree, they're not like they're so humble and they work hard. And like, how many tips did Pavelski do? And Graffer, like he's got a great stick and all these other. He's like a speed demon too. He's like he reminds me a lot of Zach Hyman, anyways. But yeah, just that. Sorry for that sidebar, but I thought it was kind of important. Anyway, the guys that would go the other way, it's like if you trade for McDavid or Matthews, like I said, you're not going to like put them on the third line. And Celebrini's got first line locked up, right? So to the future, like you're good. So it's like logically, these guys, if you have like a 1-2 Celebrini McDavid or Celebrini Matthews or a Celebrini Malkin for one, maybe, just maybe, those guys, once their ELCs kick in, maybe you just run it back if they're like, we had a lot of fun. We want to play together one more year. We've already made more money than God. Who cares about money? We'll just sign for league min to play together one more year and run it back. Like, say you lose in the Stanley Cup finals to X, whatever, Montreal, Buffalo, maybe, whatever. Or maybe you win and then they're like, let's just try and win another cup. Anyways, run it back and then you pay league men. But in all these scenarios of a super team, Michael Misa has no home, right, at center. And, you can slide Will Smith down to the center slot post in your second window, right? If you lose Michael Misa, but like a team who's going to trade you for Matthews, or that's the first guy they're going to ask for, right? Michael Misa. Like they know they can't ask for Celebrini, he's untouchable, but they're going to be like, we want Mike Misa for sure, guaranteed. And you have to part ways with them, and you got to know that every guy, like this essentially pushes the window forward for San Jose to like now. Like the hockey guides basically said, you're drafting Stenberg, like your window's open. Like let's rock and roll. You have no choice now because we were going the slow route like Chicago is like building from the back forward like Buffalo did. Then they make a few tweaks, they acquire some guys, and all of a sudden, boom, they're like taking off and they're like amazing, right? And like they go through the slums forever. And Chicago's going to take that. And I'd say that's probably San Jose's truth because they don't have a good core of young defensemen, right? So, and what's the problem in all this with developing young defensemen is really hard and it takes a long time, like usually 6 years. Like the window, I've talked about this in the past, the window of a defenseman is like 26 to 30 usually, prime. And a forward is like 19 to 25 is like their prime, right? Or 20 to 26. So like their window is pushed into the future. So like basically you're saying if you wait and you're Greer, it's fine. And maybe this is already, you know, casual handshake agreements with like Toffoli and Wenberg, like, thanks for your career, like thanks for your service. We're gonna pay you well. We'll treat you like gold. You'll have the keys to the locker room for life. Come work out with Jumbo and whatever and Patty Marlowe and all these alumni. You're Sharks forever to us, and have a great life after. But like, I think some part of me says like, yeah, like maybe can we win? Like, can we get a couple more pieces? And Greer showed that with getting a spark plug like Kiefer Sherwood, aka Woody, they call him. And I don't know what the right combination of like stabilizers like tires, spark plugs, glue, engine, throttle, like shooters, like triggermen, like throttle guys. I don't know what that combination percentage is, but I know that you can't do the Shanna plan. You can't do the core four. And if you got if you got to pay Smith and Celebrini next year, like their freight, or sorry, the year after their freight, they might sign like next year. I think it's on ELC still. So, and this second overall pick is like found money, right? It's like we were gonna do the Chicago Buffalo thing and just like, hey, we'll draft slowly, we'll get defensemen, Sam Dickinson, like, and I was unrealistically thinking like, oh yeah, the Sharks are going to win in 3-4 years. Maybe, but like you got to trade around the edges and move some pieces around, and you got to give up some of the prospects. Like, look what Chicago did. I think unfortunately they traded Kirby Doc, but I think that was to get Bedard, I believe. I don't know for sure, but like, we traded Blackie, like Mackenzie Blackwood. That was so hard to do, and like Cease and all these like culture guys and glue guys, locker room guys that like even Dreisaitl's like when we were at our best in 2024, like Cease and Desharnais. So you got to keep the glue. Like Toffoli, I know a lot of people were ragging him this year, like, oh, I think he was hurt, like his groin or something. Um, and this is another thing I want to say is like those glue guys, elevate them at the start of the year knowing that mid-season form they're going to be a little bit slower than a lot of the young, the young stallions that are flying around the ice. And Toffoli honestly looked like his feet were in the mud like later in the season. And but he showed the year before with like on the top line, the guy's got a nose for the net. He got 30 goals, right? I think he got 20 this year, but he looked noticeably slower. So I think he's got something ailing. He's aging, like, but he's a glue guy, right? You need him. And so, and these glue guys are like playoff guys, like Goodrow, playoff guy, right? Toffoli, playoff guy. So it's like the Sharks, it's like their time got a little warped or whatever. It's like they've got some of the pieces for the playoffs and some not. They're like kind of in this weird window, like window number one. And this is where I'm saying you got the lottery gods, like watch out for that post BP funny commercial. But like the hockey gods rewarded you with number two. So you have to take advantage of this now and you got to push your chips in. It's like the hockey gods said, your window's open now. There's nothing you can do about it. So this basically you don't want to go 3 4 years down the road. You got a core four and you got like a bunch of ELCs and rookies revolving around. You want to build solid pieces. And I think, like, I don't know if I said this in one of my shorts that I deleted, but like Regenda, I might have even said this earlier. This is a really long clip. I got to end it soon, shortly, maybe in the next couple minutes. But Regenda and like Kurashev, you got to keep these Olympians, right? Like they're core pieces. And I don't know if you're Greer, like you're waiting for the next crop of like, if you project it out, like Tuna Haltonen is like he's a shooter, he's a trigger man, like a throttle guy or whatever, like like Chernyshov is, and so anyways, I didn't even say the trade, like geez, my mind jumps so much, but basically the five pieces for to get McDavid or Matthews, I got to do this because I'm gonna end up and then I'll be like, why didn't I say that? Misa, Eki, Musty or Beasted, not both, and your first in 27 and 28 to get McDavid. Maybe not Matthews. Maybe the teams want different, but like essentially that's 5 first round draft picks. That is better than the Quinn Hughes trade as far as ranking. Like Misa's number two overall. But like I said, if you're going to get a guy like McDavid, you're not putting him on the third line. You're not. Maybe you could like do a power mode where Celebrini's on line two and McDavid's line one sometimes, but you don't want to run McDavid like all the time. I don't know, like he's like a Ferrari out there, but it's just like, yeah, do you run your Ferrari like to grocery shop, aka penalty kill, or are you running it down the beach like on the power play, right? So, anyways, yeah, I think that this hypothetical for this to go move down to number five or number six, I want to talk about that briefly. So in this case, you would lose Misa, Eki, with Stenberg coming in. It makes Eki more vulnerable on the depth chart, right? Like he's slotted in right now as a number two guy. Stenberg would be number one, so you could keep him. But like this second window that opens up, Musty, Haltonen, Lund, or whatever, these guys are going to be challenging for Eki's spot. So I think he had the goal of the year last year, and like if you want to sell high on guys, Beasted was like an all-star and he was 27th overall, right? Musty, I really think he's part of the core, but like maybe the team, like maybe they want him back. And it's like the only way we'll give you McDavid is like if Musty's in there and, or like the Leafs, right? For Matthews. And then, Misa is like all these guys like Stenberg, Misa, Celebrini, and Smith, 40 or like 40 million plus payroll. And I know the cap's going to go up, but that's like 2 3 years down the road. And then what if you get a stud defenseman or whatever? So this goes into what I want to say for lastly about the pick. It's like if you want if you give away your Stenberg option, not give it away, but if you trade for it, some people are like, oh, trade for Hronek, right? Like Stenberg for Hronek, like swapping the picks. Then maybe you'd pick up Malhotra, but then where does he slot in? You need a winger, right? So I think the most logical for those two are um, number five, Alexis Lafreniere, and the fifth to San Jose for Stenberg. Or number six is more likely you're rebuilding new arena. You're getting rid of all your, big contracts, bad contract. whatever. And maybe people be like, oh, Huberdeau would be like a terrible pickup. But what if that guy needs a change of scenery? Like that guy is a disher and he was dishing to Barkov and he had like 90 assists or something, like jumbo type assists, right? On the wing. Like one of the best wingers in like a long time, and then he just went dormant. So what if they trade the Stenberg to Calgary for his new arena? They're total rebuild. Like they're got a lot of young players. They're going to be scrappy like San Jose. A lot of guys will be like way above the depth chart, etc. for several years. And then they'll be in their window maybe 5, 6 years from now. Like the Sharks have been rebuilding now for like this is like the sixth or seventh year. It's been painful, right? And now you've almost got like the hockey gods say it's your time now. You got to go. So that's why I proposed this duel, like this super team, and like try to trade for McDavid or Matthews in their most vulnerable team positions where they're like, we know we're not going to win here. We're aging out. So why not just go for it and like try to trade for them, right? And you got to give up Misa. And like, I think Eki is like, could depend, like, the team is probably going to want him too. Like, give us your seventh overall pick. Like, it's like we need top guys. Like, it's like he's a known entity, right? And I love Eki's like hard work ethic. He's a dog. I love him as a guy, as a player. Like I love Misa too, and like I think the potential of like Musty or Beasted is huge, right? But like you got to part with guys that maybe will not fit if that other new player comes in, right? Like Misa is, you could put him on the wing, I guess, but like not naturally, but even this year, like, like I think with like Toff and Sherwood and a couple guys, like they've got too many guys that like would slot in number 2 or 3, and it'll kind of stop the pipeline of like giving Chernyshov or like Lund or Holton a chance. So I think the Sharks need to really grab all these guys and just prepare to like have a pretty big a different, like, say goodbye to a lot of players at the trade deadline because there's a lot of duplicates in their roster, which I think would be the hardest thing to do, right? It's like, Eki could be on the way out. Like if McDavid, like, or if they can't do a deal in the summer, or like Matthews is like, well, McKenna's like stealing my spotlight. He's doing the Conor McGregor thing, and it's like I don't even feel like the captain anymore, and like they don't love me in Toronto anymore. They love this McKenna guy, the shiny new toy. Maybe Matthews is like, I want out, right? It's like I think he was underrated in the Olympics in his defensive abilities too. But like I think the guy's like one of the best scorers ever anyway. I should end it here, but the super team could be Smith, Celebrini and Smith locked up for 8 years, and you got um, the number 6 Stenberg. Potentially, this is a piece. He goes to Calgary or New York, and you get Lafreniere or Huberdeau. Definitely Huberdeau retained. I don't think they'd have to retain anything for Lafreniere, but like Huberdeau is like zero point 0.8 points per game. Lafreniere is like very underrated. Like he could use a change of scenery too, like at zero point 0.5 points per game or something. So like put him on the wing, like no left wing number one. You need a winger in my like if you're gonna basically give up a winger that could be like a franchise changing winger, you have to get a winger in return. It's like the teams that want to trade like Rinzel or like from Chicago, they'd likely want to trade like Korchinski or like a defenseman to swap picks with you. But then your whole reason for trading down would be to get a defenseman, right? Because you need it for the future. But you got to pick best player available. You got to pick Stenberg no matter what or trade down. And I think that potentially the way Verhoff's stock has dropped, and you're gonna guaranteed gonna get like one of the four defensemen if you go to like fifth or sixth. I think seventh at the very latest. I probably wouldn't want to go seventh though. I don't even know who that team is there. But I'd say fifth or sixth at the very like that's the lowest you trade down. But you get Lafreniere and you get a left winger that can jump into your top line, feeds Celebrini and Smith for the next whatever. Like Huberdeau's a different timeline. That's like window open number one. You build the super team, Malkin, and and probably you don't get McDavid or or um, Matthews most likely, right? But you could build this super team, window number one, get your left winger. Ovi would be a power play guy. Malkin would be your second line center. You could slide Misa over to the wing, or like third line center, Wenberg on the wing. Like you could do a whole bunch of combinations there. You'd have a lot more experience, and or you take the slow path, you do nothing, and you just build up, and your window probably opens up in 5 6 years, like Buffalo. Like you're gonna have so much more suffering. But I'm sort of proposing that, even if you strike out with this super team and you don't win, and they come here and it was like, that was cool. They got to play their last year and it was fun. They were in teal. They look good in teal. It's like, I think you get a couple swings at it. You get a couple kicks of the can, as they say. And I think that would be pretty cool to try to do it. And, with Celebrini and Smith signing likely 8-year deals, they're your core. And then you, like, maybe in this case, you know, it's like, do you go out on a limb and do you give Vancouver Stenberg and you draft Verhoff? Like, if they don't want to trade some, but I would say make them trade like Hronik or something. Like there's just too much of a tier difference. Like you have to pick Stenberg at second overall unless you can trade down. So I don't even know why my mind went there to like think of that scenario. But like your dream scenario is you get Lafreniere or um, Huberdeau. You drop to fifth or sixth. They get Stenberg for their rebuild, and then you get their pick, and you get I have an order of my preference. It would be Verhoff, Carols, Chase Reed, and then Albert Smits. But like some people have Smits rising way higher. So a lot of people have Chase Reed, like, oh, he's the, I really worry about the FOMO of these. This always happens every year. And we kind of heard of like Frundell last year, right? And the proof will come out later. But Misa was the pick, and Schaefer was the number one pick. I had highlighted him in other videos too, and like I didn't even know he was going to be that good this year in the NHL. I'll be honest. I was like, he's definitely the guy that San Jose, So the hockey gods, we hit the post last year, from the BP video. It's like, hockey gods, whatever, and you turn around, you hit the post right in the face. So that happened to us last year with Schaefer, and maybe this whole thing, the hockey gods this year correcting it, is saying like you need to do a blockbuster deal to get McDavid or Matthews, and sadly a bunch of other prospects are going to go with it, but it's not like San Jose's hurting for prospects. And then you have, you know, like center number two that is like a bona fide center number one on any other team, and you run that in the playoffs for the next 5 6 years until they're like eking out. And then the defenseman that you draft, or Stenberg or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like if you kept your Stenberg with the sixth, like you didn't trade down, you kept Stenberg, you still have this second window that opens up, and you make your decisions later, right? Like if Misa's gone in that scenario with the center, you have Stenberg, and then you have a core three, right? With like Celebrini, Smith, Stenberg, and you have a defenseman too. If you traded Stenberg and you got a core two plus like a stud defender, like any one of those guys. So I got to end it there. Oh my God, it's like an hour and 8 9 minutes. I don't even know if this is going to upload, but I wanted to talk about that whole scenario of like what can the Sharks do. Explain my thought process, and I really dove deep and tried to figure out like, hey, like what's realistic for salary for stuff. And the third line at 6 million, or fourth line at 6 million, is like 2 million times three, 14 million third line. And like you got a guy like Graf who It's like there's projections up to like 8 million, right? You hope you can get him for a discount, maybe. Like, will he sign for 5 million times five, like a bridge deal? Or, and that's like 25 million. He was undrafted. Maybe he'll be like happier than a pig and poop with that kind of money. It's more money than I'll ever make in my life. And I can't compare, but yeah, it's just like these guys make a lot of money, and I know a lot of it gets taken with taxes, and a lot of it is ego and other things like based on other players in the league, like, oh, look what I make versus that. I just yeah, like, and I even the top line with 24 million, like in my projection of 64 for the forwards, 30 for the defenders, it does leave room for like guys on ELCs and stuff. So like 24 mil top line, right? Let's project like Smith 9 million a year, Celebrini 14 million a year. That's what 20 23, right? And then you got one ELC guy like a Musty or whatever on the wing, or Haltonen, or Lundy or whatever, making 1 mil a year, or like a little under, like, so. And then you got a rotating cast, or like Stenberg comes in, right, and he's making 1 mil a year for like, but then 3 years down the road, that complicates your line one picture big time, right? When Stenberg wants his money, his bag. So this is why you have to do kind of what the Ducks have done, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go far and they upset, because they got stingy vets, they've got a young core like San Jose, but they basically pushed their chips in and started getting these veterans like last year, this year, and I think the Sharks with this number two overall, they've got to push their chips in. They got to roll up to the casino and pull the lever, and call Malkin and Ovi and get this Ray Bork version 2 super team together. Pay them whatever, seven, like, while you're like playing with house money right now and using that casino reference with the second overall pick, and Greer with that smirk or whatever, he's just like, what the hell am I going to do now, right? I thought I was just taking Dax and Rudolph at number 9, and just his reaction said everything. It's like the hockey gods want us to make a big, big, big move. So, big money Mike, show me the money. Let's get it done. Let's build a super team, take some swings, try to make the conference, like, try to make the Stanley Cup next year. And, maybe run it back once more, league minimum for Ovi and Ovechkin, Ovi and Malkin. And if you got to give up Stenberg for a defenseman for window number 2, that'll open in about 5 years with Dickey and, Cags and some of these guys on the back end maturing and being in their primes. And you got like, later stage Celebrini and Smith. Just let's just win next year and get it over with. Get sharp and like build some statues, and let's party, let's do it. So anyways, guys, if you've listened this far, thank you so much for your time. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and I appreciate all of you. Peace.